Yeah, great to see you all. Okay, so we are going to be live streaming and recording, just an FYI for all the students for yourself. And I have already hit record, so we're recording. And the wonderful Juanita Mantz is here. And we have Professor Akil Brown from the PCC Creative Writing Program here with us. Oh, hi, Jalen, how are you?
Okay, YouTube is live. I'm about to send the link to you.
Excellent. Okay, and I'm just gonna copy this link so that we can get everybody who wanted to join us in here. And we are live streaming on YouTube now. All right. There it goes, posting, and we're ready to go. Welcome everyone to our wonderful PCC Humanities Speaker Series. I'm Dr. Ogden, and the Speaker Series is brought to you by the Student Services Initiative at Pasadena City College, co-sponsored by the PCC Creative Writing Program. We are absolutely thrilled tonight to have friend of PCC, Juanita Mantz, or Jem, as she's known by the insiders, join us tonight to be in conversation about her novel, Tales of an Inland Empire Girl, and all other things we want to ask, including stuff about punk rock music. I know you're going to a great festival this weekend, but we'll get to that later. I want to tell you a little bit about Juanita Mantz, who is a writer, performer, and USC law-educated lawyer, deputy public defender. Her stories have been published in literary journals, newspapers, and magazines, including the Acentos Review, Al Jazeera, As Us, Entropy, Mother, Muse, the San Bernardino Singing Anthology, so many others. Jem's an alumna of the Vona Writing Workshops and an alumna of the Macondo Writers Workshop for Writers Striving to Change the World. In addition to her novel, Tales of an Inland Empire Girl, Jem is a gold medal winner of the International Latino Book Awards for her chapbook, which is great, Portrait of a Deputy Public Defender, or How I Became a Punk Rock Lawyer. She also serves as a board member of the Inlandia Institute, which is a wonderful organization whose mission is to recognize, support, and expand literary activity in all of its forms in the Inland Empire by publishing books and sponsoring programs that deepen people's awareness, understanding, and appreciation of our unique, complex, and creatively vibrant region of the Inland Empire here in California. She was the 2022 Writer in Residence here at Pasadena City College, a true friend of PCC. We love bringing her back. Thank you for joining us, Juanita Mantz. Yay! Great to
I
have
love
you here.
Yay! Thank you so much, Professor Ogden. I'm going to read a little short poem because I think it might resonate with this crew. And this poem was just made into a song by a band called Refrigerator. It's called Static. There's a band called Joy Division that wrote this song Transmission. And so during COVID, I don't really consider myself a poet, but I started writing poetry in this poetry IE class. And it was through Inlandia. So check out the Inlandia Institute. A lot of the classes are free. And so I started writing these poems, and they made their way into my chapbook. And now one of them is a song, which for a punk rock girl is a dream come true. So this is called Static, and it's based on the Joy Division song Transmission, and it's dedicated to my clients. Can you hear me screaming in my head, let my people go, let me go, saying, let us go. Release everyone from the system that hurts us all. As a deputy public defender, I used to think I could work within it, but now I see it's broken. Can you hear me screaming in your ear? Listen to me, please. Listen. Let me do what I do, then let me go from this misery of banging my head. My ears are ringing from the beat of cuffs on bars of cells across America. Are you there? Can you hear me? Screaming your name, it all still remains. Excuse me, excuse you, forgive me, forgive us all. We know not what we do, or maybe we do. And that's from my chapbook. And obviously there's a religious component. The next piece I'm going to read is from my memoir, which took 16 years, a Joycean time. And it's not that long. It's not like Ulysses. But, I really worked on the child voice and the mother character. And both of those things are very difficult. I was very inspired by Frank McCourt's Angel's Ashes, which is written in present tense scene. He wrote it in past tense in 1969, threw it away, rewrote it after he played with his grandkids, and realized that he wanted the child's perspective to start the book. So I just read about that. I never knew that. And Frank McCourt is one of my idols. I traveled to Ireland to see his original house. And so if you think about that, the present tense scene is a very specific choice. It's very hard to bring the adult voice in, but I like it because it's very active. So I'm going to read you a piece. Banana bikes and fur coats. We skipped third grade, so we're in fourth grade now. Mom says I'm the oldest because I'm 9 minutes older than my twin Jackie. People can't seem to tell us apart, though. I don't think we look alike, even though we both have the same tan skin and brown frizzy hair. Jackie's always been bigger than me. I wear a size 8 in jeans, but she wears a 12. Mom calls her hefty and me skinny. Our youngest sister, Annie, is 16 months younger than us. Mom says that when we were all babies, it was almost like having triplets. Annie is a bit on the round side, too. Her dark pin straight hair falls just above her butt, and she has light skin, more like Dad's side of the family. Sometimes people think Annie's all white. Just last week, we were walking to school on our usual route down D Street. Jackie was pulling on Annie's scarf while I kept tripping and pushing her. We were about halfway to school when an old gray-haired white lady came out of her apartment and yelled, "You damn Mexicans, leave that little white girl alone." Jackie flipped the lady off. Together we screamed, "Shut up, you old witch! She's our sister. She's not white. She's Mexican like us." Afterwards, Jackie and I fist bumped. "Wonder Twin Power, activate, we said. The next day on the way to school, I plucked one of the white witch's roses and pulled off the petals and threw them on the sidewalk. Annie is my mom's favorite. She can do no wrong. She always gets the best gifts. There's only one of her and two of us. That's my mom's excuse, that everything has to match for us twins. And because my mom bought her a red cherry bike and us yellow banana bikes, now they call us the yellow banana bike twins. Mom says there was only one red bike left, but I don't buy it. Whenever I ride my yellow bike, I get mad. Yeah, I know I should be grateful. There are starving kids everywhere, like Mom says, and all that. But I'm not grateful for my banana bike when Annie rides by me on her apple red bike, ringing her bell to spite me. That ringing bell stays in my ears. And Annie's bike is so shiny and beautiful, I want to cry. Whenever I look at my bike, I think, stupid yellow banana bike. And then today, Jackie and I decided to fix it. Mom and Annie were at the store. We waved goodbye. "Grab her bike," I whispered to Jackie as they drove away. Jackie walked over Annette's red bike as we skipped to the park. When we got there, we took turns ramming it into trees. I grabbed dirt and spread it over her bike's bright white seat until it was covered with mud. We laughed so hard I almost peed my pants. "Wait until Annie sees her bike all messed up," Jackie cackled. We huddled together in the park giggling. "She will cry like the little baby she is," I said. "Well." A couple of hours later, Annie came home with Mom, and the minute she saw her bike, she started whimpering. "My bike, it's ruined. It's ruined." Tears ran down her little face, and she wiped at her runny nose with her mitten-covered hands. I felt a tiny tinge of regret in my stomach until I heard Annie whine, "Mommy, my red bike is ugly now like their yellow banana bikes." Mom slapped me, then chased after Jackie with a broom, but it was worth it, even though Mom bought Annie a new seat and a pretty basket that weekend. But that's not the worst thing we ever did to our little sister Annie. When we were 7 and Annie was 5, on a winter day, Mom called us into the living room. Mom was still wearing her waitressing uniform and her big white ugly waitressing shoes. "These are fancy," she said, "and very expensive." She placed a white plastic bag in front of us with the Kmart logo. Mom's eyes shined bright. She was like that. One minute she was crazy and screaming at us, and the next minute she would use all her tips to buy us a present. Annie opened her bag first, and out came a beautiful snow white furry coat with pink lining. Annie put on the white coat, and she looked just like a Snow White rabbit. I started clapping up and down. "It's so cute! It's so cute!" This was the best day ever. But then Jackie and I opened our bags at the same time, and we pulled out light brown fur jackets with dark brown lining. Jackie and I looked at each other, reading each other's minds. Jackie frowned, and she could see my disappointment. "Brown fur coats." "Do you like them?" my mom asked. I love my jacket, I said with fabricated glee. I knew I should have been grateful, but I couldn't stop staring at Annie as she preened and pranced in her white coat with the hint of pink lining peeking out. Like I said, she looked just like a snow bunny. I would have got you all white ones, Mom said, but there was only one white one left. The brown ones are still just as pretty, aren't they? Yeah, I guess they were, but Annie's jacket was prettier. I looked at my mom and I said, yes, Mom, I love my coat. It's beautiful. I ran my hand down the soft arm of the coat. It was soft and cute, but not like Annie's. I wanted the white coat with the pink lining more than anything in the world. I wanted to be a white snow bunny, plain and simple. Snow bunnies were not brown. Jackie put on her coat, but it was too tight. And as she pulled the sides of the coat together, trying to zip it, Mom pulled her arm and said, don't try and zip it, Jackie. I'll take it back tomorrow and get you a bigger size. That night, talking in whispers by the glow of our nightlight, I hatched a plan with Jackie. We couldn't help ourselves. The next day, on the way to school, I walked with Annie up Glen Street and made a turn on D Street as always. Jackie walked slowly behind us. As we rounded the corner, I turned and gave Jackie a wink. Jackie ran up and pushed Annie into a puddle of water and mud. Her formerly alabaster coat would never be pure as snow again. Now she was brown, just like us. Thank you. I haven't read that story for a very long time, but I wore my coat, so I felt like I had to.
It echoes for those of us who have siblings, I'm sure. For sure. And then, of course, all these other layers. Oh, and I see Professor Brady is here as well. Welcome, Professor Brady. It's nice to see you. So we thought we would just have some nice conversation with Jem and ask all the questions that we want to ask. I know we had lots in the classes that are reading your wonderful collection, but I just want to say I love that you mentioned Frank McCourt, the author of Angela's Ashes. And one of the things I always loved that he used to say, which I thought was really inspirational for teachers who are also writers or closet writers or want to be writers, he was being interviewed and the interviewer said, you know, where have you been? Where's your work been? You know, how come you're coming out with this so late in life? And he got really gruff and he goes, I was teaching.
Exactly.
Which I love. It's like, yeah, there's, you know, I was teaching and then I had time. So it's like he really, you know, teaching was very important to him, which I really love you introducing this, talking about the writing craft necessary for putting together this book, but going back into that voice and it's full of a lot of these wonderful anecdotes, but also, you know, of course, it's a kind of love letter to the Inland Empire, and also has some really tough stuff that you went back and looked at. And so I wonder if you can, just to get us started, talk a little generally about how you came to writing after studying the law, and how you just got into the working through this book and all that it encompassed.
Oh, good questions. Great comments. You know, this is my baby. I couldn't have kids. So maybe if I had had kids, I would have never finished this book. So my dad died when I was 36. I was a corporate lawyer, and I was hiding the fact that I was a high school dropout. So this book is a couple things. It's me reconciling that shame, and as RuPaul says, taking it and making it my superpower, the fact that I'm a high school dropout. And I use that in this book too, to say why I became a public defender after going into corporate law. But you know, it was really a way to bring my father back to life. The book starts with my dad's death, right? And then it flashes back. And Jenny is kind of like this Dorothy, right? She's come home. She's trying to find her way home. And to be perfectly honest, I was hiding a lot of things when I was a corporate lawyer. I was desperately unhappy. And so I was at the same place that senior year of high school, right? My senior year of high school, when everything imploded and I went through what I know now was a very deep mental health depression. I felt the same way when I was a corporate lawyer. So there's all these weird things. And then my dad died very suddenly, 3 weeks from diagnosis to death. He was only 69. And he always told me, Jenny, he says it in the book, you're going to miss me when I'm gone. And I swear I miss him every single day. And I had so much regret. So I guess it's a way of reconciling my grief, but that was the hard part because I had idealized him in this book. And that's why I think it took 15 years. He was the hero. My mom was the villain. And then I started my MFA program, and my professor, Richard Goodman, who's since retired, who really helped me, you know, this was already done, but he helped me realize some things that I could do a final edit with. He said, your dad is Don Quixote and your mom is Sancho Panza. My mom held everything together, right? So it's a lot of that. And, you know, the craft part of it is weird because there's stories in here that I wrote when I was 36. When my dad first died. The story of his death I wrote last. I could never write that day very well. I had to dictate it to myself in the end and do like a one-woman show, 5-minute moth style piece to capture it. And then I put it down on paper. But I do think it's better for the fact that I spent so much time making the mother character more vulnerable, more real, and Jenny's relationship with her more true to what it actually was. My mom was a very generous person. She taught me to read when I was 3 years old, 3.5, almost 4. And I was an accelerated reader and gifted in reading, not in math, in reading since a very young age. But I attribute that to my mother, you know, because she always stressed the value of an education to us. My mother was a dropout from high school as well. My mother was born here, but her family was from Mexico. And my mom, you know, got her GED when I did. So, I mean, I think being a first generation person, and I broke my mom's heart when I dropped out. If that's the point of the book, the end chapter is Jenny has broken her mom's heart. The only thing that may save her is her addiction to the Smiths and music, and the feeling that Morrissey talks to her and that he saves her from like really going to where she wants to go, which is ending it. But her books and music kind of save her from that. And then she finds education back and she becomes a lawyer. But she really is still unhappy until she comes back home. That's the irony, right? She thinks to be happy, she needs to go to law school and be a lawyer and be successful and be a corporate lawyer. But really, she doesn't find herself till she comes home. So.
Wow. I have a lot to say, but I will hold for Fern's wonderful question. And I love that Fern is like, you're on the bus or on the train or something right now, which is so fantastic. But Fern says,
yes, I'm on the
oh,
bus
you're
right
on. Okay, good. Yeah, Fern, go ahead and ask your own question. I was going to ask
I
you.
love buses, by the way. I rode a lot of
Yes.
buses. I never had a car
Yeah,
when I was young.
I'm on the 460, which is its final stop is Disneyland. It's my way home from campus. Anyways, since we're talking about like the process of like how it was to write Tales of an Empire Girl, the years it took, etc. One of the things I noticed while reading it was that you were like, I noticed that you would like reintroduce characters or recap events in every chapter, almost like they were kind of standalone essays at times. So I was just really curious about that choice and what led to it.
You caught it. I mean, every story was written as a standalone piece.
Yeah.
A lot of science fiction writers do this, and that's their process. And I didn't know that going in, that there is a rhyme to my reason that I ended up doing. At the very end, what took 2 years, this book took about 14 years to write, 2 years to edit to publication, is taking out as much of the repetition as I could while keeping the integrity of the piece. And I had my friend Liz Gonzalez, who is a very well-known writer who wrote Dancing in the Santa Ana Winds, and she's working on a book about the original Lady of Guadalupe Church in San Bernardino. She's from San Bernardino. She lives in Long Beach. She teaches in LA. And we have the same publisher. Dancing in the Santa Ana Winds is by Los Nietos Press. So she went through the book for me and took out all the repetition that she could find. But you're right. Every essay was a standalone piece. That's the only way I know how to write. I'm working on a fiction YA novel right now about a runaway punk rock girl in the 80s. And I'm finding it very difficult because I don't write the way a typical person writes, like chapter by chapter. I don't have a plot. I have never outlined an essay or a book in my life. I think I had to do an outline once and I had to do it backwards because I don't think in outline form. But you caught it. Yeah, you were exactly right. There is I took out as much as I could without changing the stories. But yeah, and I also wanted to remind people of certain aspects of my mom or my dad or my sisters. But like, for example, just taking out Jackie, my twin. And if you noticed, when I read a story, I don't read it verbatim. I always ad lib and change stuff, and I'll change the dialogue to make it breathe easier. That's a performance thing. So when I read a story from here, it's not verbatim. It's kind of like I'm ad libbing, kind of acting it and feeling it.
I love that. Great question, Fern, too. And I know, I feel like I read this somewhere, or that you were, when I read it, so somebody, as somebody who's a performer and a director, I was like, I saw the whole thing on the stage in my brain. I was like, oh my God. And I know, are you working on translating, adapting it for the stage, solo performance or full play performance?
I did a 3-act play in my MFA program. I worked with the very famous playwright who teaches at University of New Orleans, where I'm in my MFA online program, Justin Miller.
Oh,
and
Justin, yeah.
Yeah, he gave me his play as a template. So it has this narrator. So I kind of based on like used his play as a template just to get started and finish a project for class. But I have a 3-act play. It's not perfect. It needs work, but I'm working. So I have that. That's done. I would like to try to do a reading on that and see if it works. It's kind of like just the death scene, and then it flashes back, and there's a punk rock narrator, and then Jenny is as an older girl narrate. It's kind of a mess, but it's fun. And then I am working on a one-woman show, and that's just a collection of all these different stories. And then I'm also working on a book of essays about trauma that is only essays, mostly braided essays. So I'm working on a lot. Like I write very quick, but it takes me a long time to put stuff together into like a collection or a book.
Yeah, that's great. Professor Brown.
Yes, hi, thank you.
Hi.
You kind of answered this, but I'm not, just going back, you said for the chapter about your dad, that you had to do a monologue one-woman show. Was it actually a one-woman show, or is that just how you think of it, like recording in your voice recorder or whatever?
No, it was a one-woman show with Brian Finkelstein. I took a class at Writing Pad in Los Angeles, which is, they do like a class where you can take a 5-week course and learn how to do a moth. And then at the end of it, we put on a show. We each had 5 to 7 minutes, and we had to have no notes, nothing in hand. You were not allowed. It's like if you messed up and you crashed and burned, it was mostly just friends and family there. Like everyone wanted you to succeed. But what's very interesting is I wrote that story maybe 20 times. I wrote it in like a James Joyce stream of consciousness way. I wrote it very factual, and it never worked. It just never worked. It was like, it's not capturing it. It's because that day was so chaotic and weird and funny, and there were so many odd things. Someone that read it in a workshop told me that I don't believe this is true. And I said, well, it's memoir. So everything that happened. Yeah, like my dad did choke on a piece of fish. I did give him that stupid fish. It did haunt me for the rest of my life that his last day was like that. And then he did say, you almost killed me, Jenny. You know, it's like that kind of stuff you cannot make up. Only real life is weird and eerie and odd. And then he dies at the end of the day. Only real life is like that. So yeah, I had to, I kept on like calling myself on my work phone and leaving little snippets, and then I would put it down on page. And then at the end, it was just, I figured out it's a performance piece. I don't read it very often because I get choked up, and I try not to re-traumatize myself. And kind of when I got that story out, I kind of let it go. I let that day go. So I don't ever perform it. Very rarely, maybe once or twice. I think I'll do it in my one-woman show though, and it's the focus of the 3-act play.
Okay.
So it starts with his death, and then there's flashbacks, then it ends with the funeral. That's the play. And it's the 3 sisters, the mom, dad character. I tried to make it a small cast because that's what Justin said, that nowadays you can't do like a huge play if you're going to do it. You have to have a small cast of characters.
Sad. That is true.
I didn't know that. I was like, my first play, I was like, 20 characters. Let's have all these actors.
I'd like a Greek chorus talking about a play like that, where it's like 10 people in a Greek chorus. They're like, this is never going to get staged. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Marla had a great question. If I can rephrase it, Marla, talking about the various genres you write in, and which is more challenging, and I'm interested too, which is the first turn that you go to, the first structure form. And you said you weren't really a poet, but that was a badass poem. So, talk a little bit about the genres and how they speak to you and all of that stuff.
I have to credit Stephanie Barbie Hammer, who wrote a number of books, for really making me believe in my poetic voice. I took a class, and some people were like, "You don't know form, you don't write, and your line breaks or this or that." And she really just said, "Juanita, I think when I hear you read a poem, it's a poem." So, I mean, she's like, "Just go with it, go with your gut on that." And I've always been so into music, and most great songs are like poems. I mean, Tupac and Exene and Cervanka, those are two great examples of actual poets that wrote songs, or Dylan. So my first genre is probably memoir and child voice. That's what I love the most to write, but I've written a lot of those stories, and my memory, I'm like, okay, what else is there to write about from those years? Essays is what I'm probably best at. It takes the least effort from me. I think in essays, like it comes naturally to me. Poetry is like third. And I've gotten more confident as a poet and learned to trust my voice and understand that I may not know all the, semantics and craft of it, but that I do have a certain affinity for at least spoken word poetry. And then fourth is fiction. I have been working on this YA novel for about 2-3 years now, and I only have like 3 chapters because I can't let go. With memoir, why I love memoir, and I will always love it, it'll always be my first love. You take what's true and you make it creative and you make it interesting and funny. And since a very young girl, my mom would say, she's a teller of tales. Juanita can tell a story. She can sell snow to an Eskimo. Like, she is funny. So I always knew I had that. But I don't have, my twin sister writes as well. She's coming out with her second book, and she has a very good imagination. She can write fiction like you wouldn't believe. Like, she can just drum up a whole scene in her head. So I'm trying to get there. I think I just need to let go of who I am as a writer as far as being wedded to memoir, but I love memoir. I've read so many memoirs. I mean, it's my favorite genre to write, probably, and my favorite genre to read.
That's great.
I mean, it's true, right? All this stuff's true. Or it's as close to true as you can get it. This is me, but Jenny is a character. I always tell people that. Like, don't think I captured myself. No one can capture themselves 30 years later, right?
Yeah, well, just to follow up on that real quick before, Jillian's question is, when recreating those dialogues in memoir, that's always a question that students ask about, is it the gift of perhaps these are the things we said, or do you just run with it?
I run with it, and I try to capture the truth of how I remember it. I go into a trance when I write. Sometimes it's automatic. Grandpa's House was written in one sitting in 2 hours from beginning to end, and I've never changed a word. Wow. I swear my grandpa must have been sitting on my shoulder whispering in my ear. And that Grandpa's House is a compressed day. It's one day, but it's really like 10 different visits, right? The Big O, my mom and dad had that conversation about the bar many, many times. And my mom would always say, that's the street where the prostitutes live. And my dad would always say, come on, Judy, we'll do. So I remember the dialogue. Now, is it word for word? I don't know, but I capture the truth and I capture the feeling and what was said. There is one scene that my twin sister said is probably autofiction in her opinion, but we went back and forth and I left it in. So my mom used to yell and scream a lot, and we walked by my neighbors, and I remember vividly my neighbor saying, your mom doesn't love you. That's why she's always screaming at you and kicking you out of the house. And that hit close to home, and me and my sister kind of cheered it. But then and Jackie was like, quack, quack, quack. And we used to watch a lot of Kung Fu with my dad, like Bruce Lee movies. So I remember her kind of like, or maybe it was Wonder Woman. Like, I got as close to the truth of what I remember that fight was like with those boys. But in the end, what is that scene about? That scene is about 2 little girls that have this shame, but instead of crying in front of these 2 neighbors, because they've hit our hearts, right? We really do think our mom doesn't love us, even though she does. I say it in the Broken Cookie story. She really did love us. And it's about Jenny and Jackie uniting and kind of fighting and saying, we're not gonna take this, Yeah. Because in the end, the book really is about the 3 sisters. Yeah. I mean, you'll notice towards the middle of the book, when Jenny goes into junior high and high school, the sisters are replaced by Melinda and Tracy. And that was purposeful because my sisters had their own struggles in high school. And that is not my story to tell, stuff that happened to them. And there's more stuff that happened to me that I did not include. Yeah. I didn't want it to be like overkill, like, oh, They lost the house. She dropped out of school. She was raped. Like there's sexual stuff that I did not include, you know? And
Yeah.
so it might make more sense why Jenny is so depressed if you knew the whole story. But
Mhm.
I think I capture enough that you get a sense that Jenny, the chickens are coming home to roost for Jenny. And she's been hoping for many, many years with school and all these other things. But senior year, she just loses it. She's like, I'm done. I can't go to Claremont McKenna after all this.
Mhm.
After going to school with all this fighting and chaos and getting straight A's, I can't go to Claremont McKenna. She's
Mhm.
like, forget it then. I'll just go waitress. And I did. I waitressed for 10 years.
Yeah.
It took me 10 years to get through undergrad. It took
Wow.
me 3 years to get through law school.
Wow.
And my hardest part was junior college. That took me 5 years. I couldn't pass algebra 2. And then I
Yeah.
had a professor who sat with me every day after class and taught me algebra 2 in sentence form. And I learned it.
Oh, wow.
She literally translated it for me because I have I transpose numbers and stuff. I have an issue with equations. I didn't know it as a kid. I always just thought I was done with math. But I think because I'm so wedded to language that numbers don't make sense to me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Jalen, did you want to ask your question or have it read for you? I'll go ahead and read it since I don't see the mic changing. When writing Tales of an Inland Empire Girl, were there any parts you struggled to write? And how did you approach revising that personal material?
Yes, yes, yes. The book almost got thrown away a couple times. My mom and sisters just did not want me to publish the book at first.
Mm-hmm.
Once it got to the end and they saw how it had changed, I think they were okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, revision for me is hard. I sometimes go back to my first drafts and do a light edit. So most of the stories I edited for a couple years, but there's a couple of stories, Movie Time and the last story about me dropping out of high school. I went back to my original versions because I thought I had overworked them.
Wow.
So there is something, at least if you're a pretty clean writer to begin with, about keeping all your drafts.
Yeah.
Because and I also had a copy editor mess with the tenses, and I don't like past tense. I'll use past passive and past tense when I'm flashing forward and back, but most of my book is in present tense active voice because I like the immediacy and the cinematic quality to it, like Frank
Mm-hmm.
McCourt did. And the other person that does it is Judy Blume, and I grew up reading Judy Blume.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? And there's obviously, I don't know if anyone else caught it. I'm sure you did. There's an Outsiders theme here.
Oh,
Stay
yeah.
Gold. Jenny is like a rebel, right? And Jenny's obsessed with like bad boy culture and like all that whole like, you know, greasers and socias and class. And so I love S.E. Hinton. And she wrote Outsiders when she was 15. So that's what I mean by some of my first stories are better because it's like the Sex Pistols, right? They only had one album. Sid could barely play bass. But what did they have? Voice and talent.
Yeah. Yeah.
That goes like 90% of the way. So like for those writers out there, like honestly, don't buy that you need all this perfection. I mean, sometimes your best stories are going to be the ones that are the rawest.
Yeah.
And Junot Diaz is like that. If you read Drown, his first collection of stories, it's so beautiful. You know, and he wrote it in his MFA program at Rutgers.
Yeah. I wish I could say that about my MFA thesis. I'm like, I hope no one ever finds that thing. Let's see. Fern, you had your hand up, and then Marla had a question as well.
Yeah, well, I was just noticing the use of Jenny when talking about the stories as opposed to like I, me. So is that part of like the memoir writing experience, or you also mentioned that like when you wrote about what happened with your father, you felt like you had released it. Is that related?
Oh, definitely, right. Gem, I use Juanita E. Mantz. I use my initials Gem as like a character for my podcasting and my blog and like a marketing thing. Jenny is me as a young kid, right? She's a character. She's me for sure, but I'm not her anymore, right? I've evolved and changed. So when I try to be Jenny, I try to go into her character. When I perform her, I try to be her. I did a performance at a bookstore, Los Libros in LA, a couple weeks ago, and I literally lost myself. I was like, oh, that's why I do this, because I get really sick stage fright like right before. But then when I go on, I'm okay. And I've tried to turn, I always say, if I can argue for someone's life in front of a judge in a black robe, what am I so scared about in front of all these people that want me to do well? Right? They're just there to
Yeah.
see me shine. And so I felt like, oh, I turned a corner on my performance because I lost myself. I was Jenny for those 10 minutes. And it was a long reading. I don't like doing that long of readings. It was almost 10 minutes. And I like 5 to 7 is kind of my sweet point. But I got to get to longer to do the one woman show. That has to be about an hour. But I want to break it up with some music and some like slideshows. Like, it's not just going to be me talking for an hour. Like, who wants to watch that? Maybe. Definitely not my husband, I'll tell you that. He's like, it's the Gem show. It's all about you. And sometimes I'm a lot, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's okay. I think part of it is like that, in the literature classes that are reading your book. In my classes, we're talking about bearing witness as our theme. And I just felt like your book was the perfect book for that. And hearing you talk about just all of the, not just your writing about it, but writing in other ways, how you're presenting yourself on stage. It's like an opportunity to bear witness for your many selves, the little Jenny that we hold, little Kirsten is inside here somewhere. We hold those children that we were carefully. And then as we age, there are these different aspects of ourselves. And I feel like it's slowly this opportunity for us to bear witness more. And I think, your note about, I get this terrible stage fright because I think maybe that's part of, I'm revealing myself.
Yeah.
And and do you have anything to say about that idea or theme of bearing witness as
you caught it. I got goosebumps. You
great.
said I'm like holding that little Jenny, right? And I always use this phrase that no matter what, I'm still that little girl sitting on the roof, listening to her parents fight, wanting to escape.
Yeah.
At the end of all of it, I still deal with things to this day from that stuff. I was very terrified as a young kid many times. My mom did worse things than that are in the book. But I mean, it was worse than I probably portrayed it. And it was better than I probably portrayed it at times. But it was very mercurial. It was very chaotic. And that is why I can do the work I do. Yeah. So in the end, it was a gift because I compare public defense to emergency room medicine. It's very similar. It's a lot of triage. It's a lot of trauma. It's a lot of bearing witness. And I don't think I could handle the court because I work in the most chaotic courtroom there is in Riverside County, which is 1368 court. The clients are so extreme that they're very off their meds and they're incompetent to stand trial. And I have everything from a petty theft to a murder. Wow. Well, attempt murder now. They gave away our murder cases. So we have one attorney. So I have everything from petty theft to an attempt murder. But I've handled many murders. And these people can't speak for themselves. That's how ill they are. And they're often covered in feces or going haywire in court. And how can I handle that? Who would want to be in that courtroom Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every week? But it feels normal to me for some weird reason. And if you read the book, you understand why, right? Jenny's constantly mediating. And, the hardest character that breaks my heart the most is my twin sister's character. Because she won't cry. And so she won't give in to my mother. So she takes the brunt of the abuse, but Jenny has to watch it. Yeah. So which is worse? In some ways, feeling like you have no power and watching that happen, and it's your twin sister who you're in utero with, or is it worse to feel it but stand your ground? And then the girl fight story is in there to show that Jackie is the true fighter. Jenny's a big old scaredy cat, and Jackie calls her on it. You can't fight, Jenny. You can just talk trash, which was always the case. Yeah, so
Jackie's character is pretty great, and I think too, like for those of us who are of the Gen X age or a little older, like a lot of that stuff is ringing true in people that we knew and places that we went, and I could hear her voice, you know, really clearly. It was such a great character.
And
This,
she got her doctorate, and she works in a continuation school. She was in admin, and so she did very well, you know, and
Wow.
she was a fighter. She did,
Well, I
and she
wanna
did
read her-
graduate. She
I want to read
graduated.
because you said she's a writer as well, or is that the other sister?
No, that's Jackie, and it's coming
Okay.
out in a couple months, so I'll send it to you when it comes out.
That's great. Yeah.
And it's about teaching.
I
Yeah.
love,
Yeah.
you know, as a teacher, we love to read about
Mhm.
how we do what we do too, which is really,
Mhm.
really great. So I'm eager to read that. Marla's question is, I think, one for the ages. Writers arguing back and forth about this question. Do you want to read your question, Marla, or would you like me to read it for you? It is, when writing nonfiction pieces, such as memoirs or personal essays, is it more important to be as factually accurate as possible, or, as you were speaking about, capturing the truth and the emotion, the coloring of that scene being conveyed? And I feel like, you know, that's a debate in writing. Oh yeah, that's right, Marla. I'm sorry, you can't turn on your mic. But
It's a balance. So, like I say, if you're not going to be 100% wedded to the facts and use words that kind of can break up the text and kind of cause this little bit of
mhm.
what probably happened was, like, to me, that's a crutch. Like write what you think happened, and then in your acknowledgments and in your forward and afterward, acknowledge the liberties that you took.
Mhm.
I had to compress certain events. You know, but I'll tell you this, what I think is very important with memoir and nonfiction is checking the facts you can check. Like, for
Mhm.
example, my best friend Tracy gave me all our letters that we wrote back and forth. I checked every movie reference, every musical reference. So in the Challenger scene, the original album I referenced was a later Smiths album, but it wasn't out yet.
Yeah.
And so I had to go, it's this other album, right? So I couldn't remember which one it was. So I just picked the later one that was kind of my favorite. And turned out it was the earlier one. And then you do not want to make music people mad. There are friends of mine in my music group that checked every single music and film reference in the
Wow.
book to make sure that it existed at the time and was actually out at the time in America. So, I mean, you have to be very careful when you're
Yeah.
citing stuff that can be fact checked. Now, stuff like dialogue and stuff, I always acknowledge, look, I've compressed events, I've taken days and morphed them into one day. I think most memoirists have to do that when you're writing in child voice. Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls is another big influence on me, as well as Sandra Cisneros, who wrote not fiction, but it's kind of nonfiction in a way, House on Mango Street. And Junot Diaz is Drowned. That was a big influence. But what I forget what I was going to say.
You were talking about you know, memoir writing and like how the scenes are compressed and just making sure we're translating that to our readers. And that
you have to acknowledge it. So if you're going to
to
take liberties, you acknowledge it in the foreword, the afterward, the acknowledgments, and you just acknowledge what you did. And I think that's fine. And all memoirs do it. Oh, I was talking about Glass Castle. There's a scene in Glass Castle where she is very young. It's very up to debate whether she would actually have this memory of being in the car while her parents are in the casino or wherever they are. But she's writing in that voice. I'm fine with that. Like, imagine it if you have to. Like, does it really matter? I mean, the best creative nonfiction reads like fiction to me. You know, so I mean that's my point on it. Lit, other books by other writers I love. Writing in Cars with Boys, Joanne Beard. I mean, I read so much memoir, and like most of it is very creative. I don't like autobiography. I don't like biography for that reason. I don't read biography. I read old autobiographies. I read memoir, creative nonfiction. I read autofiction. But I do not like biographies when someone else is telling someone's story, unless Andrew Pham, who just passed, who wrote Catfish and Mandela. He was one of my professors at Bona. And he's the reason that the chapter in My Mom's Voice exists. I wrote that in his class word for word and really have not edited it.
Wow.
I went into a trance and wrote in my mom's voice somehow, but he got me there and he told me I could do it. He wrote a whole book in his dad's voice called Eves of Heaven about his dad growing up in Vietnam. And I love it when writers do that, when they write in their parents' voice or their ancestors' voice. I'm fine with that. But don't give me a third party that doesn't know you writing your biography. I mean, it's interesting if you're just reading it just to find the historical part of it, but
Sure.
is the creative nonfiction there? Not usually. Usually they're more factual based. So I say go with the creative side and then fill in the holes, double check your sources, get as much. I had my sister Annie read it. She has a memory like nobody's business. My mom remembers a lot of stuff. So you have to have people read it that were there and kind of say, okay, did this happen like this? And check your facts, check your movie references, check your book, check your film references, music, check all of that because people will check that. I can tell you.
Yeah, I feel it's hard to write about people who are living too, and
Mhm.
having that balance of, am I telling my story, or
Yeah.
am I stepping into their story, as you were saying, keeping out some of the stuff that were your sister's stories and not
Yep.
necessarily yours to tell. And then thinking about parents is tough because, this idea of bearing witness and making, we want to share their story too. I've been doing these long obituaries lately with
Oh,
on anniversaries because I'm like, I want people to know the story of this person, but it's a tough thing to do. Whether they're living or deceased, to write about other people, but
oh yeah.
also to also be an ethical, responsible writer who's like, I'm
Hmm.
not just making this up, but I'm doing what I need to do to make sure that it's emotionally truthful and honest as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is
And
really great.
the whole thing about the honesty thing about writing about other people, it's hard. One trick that I do is this book is also a lot of it is written in present tense, active scene, and in Jenny's voice
Mm-hmm.
as a kid and not looking back as an adult, is because you are knowing what Jenny knew at the time. Like, for example, Jenny talks about her dad had a daughter. Jenny
Mm,
doesn't know the whole story. I know the whole story, but Jenny didn't.
right.
And the whole story is a whole lot worse. And so I didn't have to tell that part of it because Jenny didn't know it.
Interesting.
I found out researching the book, talking to my
Closing the
mom.
ears and closing the voice off to what would they be able to know at that moment versus
Yeah.
me looking, which is another memoir technique, me looking back and
Mm-hmm.
kind of from my wise, perspective on whatever happened. But yeah, and I feel like that's what makes it so present, cinematic,
Yeah.
performative, theatrical.
Right.
Reading that, which is really exciting.
I've tried to read essays and perform essays that are more, or I've tried to read past tense stories that I've written. It's not the same.
You got
Yeah,
to
I
bring
think,
them
yeah,
forward, bring them
yeah,
into that
yeah.
present voice. We have about 10 minutes or so. I wonder if you have another little short piece to read, and then we can close up with a couple of questions that are lingering.
Sure. Okay, this
That'd
one's
be
pretty
great.
short. And this one, I wrote, I changed the ending in my MFA program. The story already existed, but then my professor, Joanne James, got me to add the ending. Trailer Park Days. So this is Jenny when she's in her 20s. Waking up, I stretch and cover my ears. Mom and Dad are already arguing. I moved back home with them into their trailer last week. First, my car blew up. Then Adrian and I broke up. Next, I lost my waitressing job. I'm in junior college. I was just appointed editor-in-chief of the Mountaineer, Mount Sax newspaper. It's one of the few good things in my life right now. Most days, I feel like I will never get out of junior college hell. I'll probably be 40, still living in my parents' trailer, trying to pass Algebra 2. Dad yells from the kitchen, Jenny, I made you some fried bologna and eggs. The trailer park my parents live in is in Pomona on Mission Boulevard, in the worst part of town. I never thought I would live in a trailer, much less back with my mom and dad, but I didn't have any options after I lost my job and my apartment. After not being able to make my rent, I came home, tail between my legs, back to broke down crazy town. When I moved out of my parents' house, I said I would never go back. Yet, here I lay, on a twin bed, in their trailer, with a tapestry of dogs playing poker staring at me from the ceiling. Jenny, your eggs are getting cold, Dad says. He's already dressed, wearing his usual blue Wrangler jeans with his Big John belt buckle and his cowboy shirt. At least he left off the bolo tie. I get up. I could sleep all day. It's only 7 in the morning. Finally up, my mom says, as I walk into the kitchen to wolf down my breakfast. She's on her 5th cup of coffee. Yeah, Mom, I have class at 10. I look at her with my leave me alone face. Mom mutters to herself and walks out of the room. I hear the front door slam. Thank God she's gone. I don't know which is worse, Dad with his pandering or Mom screaming and yelling. She's always angry, mad at me, mad at Dad that she has to go to work when he's on disability. Dad would rather be working, but all those years of moving furniture broke his body physically. Shoot, I have a newspaper story to get out today. My favorite part about being a journalist is bringing the tape recorder and interviewing someone and listening and taking notes. I rush into the shower. The bathroom is filthy. The entire trailer is dirty and smells like cigarette smoke. Even my books smell like smoke. I'm taking a Shakespeare class, and the moment I walk into the classroom, people wrinkle their nose from the overwhelming stench of Dad's Kent cigarettes on my clothes. I get dressed, t-shirt, jeans. Dad, you ready? Let me finish this game, Dad says. He's playing his Yahtzee computer handheld. He plays the game all day long. Mom got it for him to keep him from going to the casino and losing all their rent money. The Talking Heads song, Once in a Lifetime, floats into my mind. I take a deep breath in and out. I walk outside. I look at the row of trailers all lined up like rectangular boxes. This trailer park is so depressing, like nothing like the house we had when I was little. Back then, we each had our own room and a swimming pool, but my parents lost the nice house along with my dad's bar when I was in high school. I wanted to attend Claremont McKenna, but I made my proverbial bed when I dropped out of high school senior year, 5 units short of a diploma. So yes, just call me class of 1989, high school dropout loser. I opened the door to Dad's maroon Beretta and placed my backpack on a pile of Reader's Digest. Dad loves those magazines and his TV guides. They're everywhere. The car's ashtray is overflowing, so I dump it in the trash outside. Dad walks outside, lights up a cigarette, and gets into the car. There's no use complaining about him smoking. I'm just lucky I don't have to take the bus. Dad turns on the country station. Johnny Cash's I Walk the Line waves in the air. You take a close watch on this heart of mine. As he pulls away from the trailer, I open up my Shakespeare book and start reading. I'm transported into As You Like It. Some days I feel just like Rosalind, always pretending to be someone else. My head spins in the car. I stop reading. I'm car sick. I'm proud of you, Jenny, for going to school and all that work on the newspaper, Dad says with a smile and his signature wink. I know it's not easy. I smile back at him. I wipe tears from my eyes and roll down my window to breathe in the wind. This is the part I added. Years later, while on hospice care and as he lay dying from pancreatic cancer, Dad would say once again, Jenny, I'm so proud of you. He would add, take care of your mom for me, Jenny. She loves you girls so very, very much. So I do.
Wonderful.
That story's hard to read, the end part. My teacher had me add it, but I mean, I love it, but that last.
That's the part where it's, that's the part where it dovetails and it's like that plot goes down and the emotional presence and feeling rises.
I don't have a lot of plot in my books, as you can tell, and I've been criticized for that. Where's the plot? I don't care about plot. I care about character. Yeah,
and I think there's it's okay for the reader to do a little work.
And it's a very blue collar way, right? That Jenny getting to school is the plot. Is she going to get to school that day? Yeah. That's a very blue collar way of thinking about life. Like every day is a struggle. So every day is its own like plot line. So that's how I think of it. Like, does it have to be, like I do have a story in there where they steal a car and there's a plot in that story. Are they going to get back? Are they going to get caught by the cops? But I'm not that great at plotting out stuff. So
I'm going to push back on you criticizing yourself, saying you're not that great at plot, because I feel one of the really important things that we've been talking about, especially in the California literature class, some of the students are here, is how important it is for the literary landscape to enlarge and welcome in a variety of diverse voices that tell stories differently, and so that we can bear witness to those different ways of experiencing and telling stories. And so when I hear, when I go to conferences or whatever, people are like plot and, climax and all, there are so many ways of telling a story and then for readers to experience a story. And the hard, fast rules of creative writing, which students who take my class know those don't exist, has I think it keeps important voices out sometimes. And so, that's why I love your book and I applaud that it's part of this, landscape, and it's giving us these really rich, complex characters that are just all on their own little journeys, but then together they're in this, this bubble of journey. And are they going to make it? What's going to happen? And I think it's very powerful. In my opinion. So I really appreciate it. And
that means so much, because I do think we need to value our unique voices. And
absolutely.
I always thought my writing was juvenile, that no one would want to read it, that it was stupid, that I didn't have a literary quality into my writing.
Sure.
When I was younger. Now I know I do, but it took many years to get that confidence,
Yeah. And who defines that literary?
Who defines that?
We do. We define so closing question, we have just a couple minutes. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming tonight to celebrate.
Are you going to share anything that they wrote really quick?
I think I did not have volunteers when I asked them, but I think we will send you some things. I think they were a little shy about the live.
I would love to read them. I would love to read them, and just send them to me. I'm happy to read anyone's work or response, even original pieces. I would love to read your work. So I love reading new writers and young writers, and
How beautiful. Thank you for that offer. That is so generous. Professor Brown says Lisa Kron would say that plot is about character transformation, which is what happens in your book. And I think that's really important. So a lot of people are asking about, we'll just close out with, I like to close out with two questions. One's from Professor Brown, but everybody's asking about balancing, being a lawyer or your work life and your writer's life. And does your, work life infect your writer's life? And then Professor Brown always wants our visiting writers to share, what are you listening to right now? What are you reading? What are you watching?
Wow. It does, I don't consider this work. I love it. It keeps me energized. I probably work 40 to 50. I used to work 80 hours a week. I've put a lot of boundaries at work now. And so I work my 40 to 50 hours a week, and then I delegate and go home. And I work, but writing and podcasting and all that stuff is what keeps me alive. I don't think I would be a lawyer anymore. I might not even be on this earth if I wasn't a writer. It's really helped me process, and I go through therapy and stuff, but it's helped me deal with a lot of the trauma I have, both from work and from my childhood. So I don't consider, but I do probably work, if you add everything up, 80 to 100 hours a week, if you take in all my writing and events. If you count that as work, I have a second job. And I have a lot of caffeine. What am I listening to? I am OG. I'm going to Queer World this weekend, so I've been listening to Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, and I've never seen him live, so he's bucket list. Go-Go's, OMD, all bands that are going to be there. My first love is the Smiths.
Getting back together to be there. That's
Amy Mann is
Amy
talk
Mann.
About songwriting. Those are stories, and so I'm a huge Bowie fan, huge Morrissey. I listen to a lot of old music. What am I watching? I just watched the most recent. I'm trying to finish, get caught up with Handmaid's Tale. And I think they're doing a very good job this season of turning the whole series on its head and making it more the women become warriors. And especially where we are in the world right now, I think that's really important to realize that. I think in The West Wing, which I also just finished for like the 5th time straight through, and you don't even know how many episodes there are of West Wing. Martin Sheen in one episode, as the president says, never underestimate the difference that one person or a group of good people can make in the world. And in the end, having to deal with incarcerated populations every day, I see people truly suffer. And so I am always grateful for my life, that I get to go home at night and be with my husband and my dogs, and even my suegra who lives with us.
Yeah. And you have 3 dogs, right? You just got.
I have 3 puppies: Mary, Pippin, and Princess Leia.
And
their siblings. 3 siblings, right?
I love that.
Weird.
So wonderful. All right, so I'm gonna hit the stop record now, and just before we go, if you want to open your mic and thank Juanita Mantz for being here tonight. We really appreciate it. What a great conversation with you. And we'll see y'all next time. I just want to let everybody know that our next event is with the incredible writer and critic David Yulin, who will be with us on Zoom Thursday, May 29, 6 p.m. And so if you're at all interested in hearing about the wealth of California literature, David Yulin's going to talk with us about that to close out our PCC Humanities Speaker Series. Have a
Great.
wonderful evening.
And Kristen, do a drawing and I'll give away a copy of
Oh.
this and just send me the name, okay?
Oh, that's fabulous. Okay,
yeah.
yes. So I'm going to say if you fill out the survey, I just put the link in there and let us know how you liked it. We'll do a random drawing for this wonderful gift from Juanita Mantz, her first book, which is really great. It was hard to choose which book, so we'll teach you that.
And
Okay.
I really mean it. Have your students send me if they want me to read a poem or a story. I'm happy to read it and give them some feedback. I'm happy to do
Awesome.
that.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to officially stop recording.